Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Bettendorf Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. It's 5 o'clock p.m. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. And we start with our comprehensive plan update today. For that, we welcome our Community Development Director, Mark Hunt, and our City Planner, Taylor Beswick. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor.
All right,
We
just
are
turn
in
my
the
phone
uniform.
off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor. We are in the uniform of the day. Blue blazers, white ties.
Nice.
Oh, cute.
Yellow test.
Real nice, thank you. That was your test, you passed. I want to give you an update on the comprehensive plan. Taylor has really taken a lead in this. He is our senior planner and aptly named. The work that he's doing to prepare this document is really above and beyond. But I think it's going to show you, what you're going to see in a few minutes, a lot of your input has been reflected upon and will be reflected in the upcoming draft. And just a reminder, this is a plan update. So we didn't throw out the old plan and make a new plan. We kept the old plan and updated the pieces and parts of it that need to be updated due to changes in demographics, changes in land use and development patterns, and just modified kind of the existing frames of what was a really well done land use plan back in 2016, 2017. That's correct. So I'll turn it over to Taylor to provide the formal presentation. I might provide some color commentary and look forward to just a little bit of exchange here with you all.
Thank you, Mark. Mayor, members of council, on the screen here. So this is just an update to the kind of a status update to the comprehensive plan update. We met back in July, got a lot of input from City Council, Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, and since we've also met with many civic groups. We had a meeting with the developers here. And had some one-on-one meetings with them as well to get some input on that future land use map and just general input on Bettendorf's growth. As a refresher, I'll go over what the planning process was for this update and how it affects our zoning ordinance and general construction and subdivision in the city. So we're currently just going on updating the comprehensive plan and that future land use map. Once we have a new plan and map, we can start kind of comparing and contrasting that to the current zoning ordinance, and we will be updating that. That affects.
Let me jump in on that one because that's actually underway.
Correct.
You won't get the zoning ordinance on the same day you get the comp plan because we need to finish the plan and then finish the ordinance. You don't want to shortchange that. We want to be reflective of the plan in our ordinance, but that work's already started. It won't be done, immediately, but it'll be done in months following the comp plan adoption. Go ahead, sorry.
Yep. So yeah, we have started that, but we'll be really kicking in gear once the comp plan is adopted. And that of course affects how our subdivisions occur and general construction and where growth occurs. We started this process really late in this past winter. We went over an administrative review with staff and our consultant RDG. Identified sections to update, updated our projections for population, and looked at our currently adopted future land use map and designated areas where we need to amend. We gathered input, as I mentioned earlier, this summer and continued into the fall. Those included on the future land use map, the goals, and some of the projections on fiscal impacts and data. And then this fall, or later this winter, we'll have a comprehensive plan for adoption by council. And just to reiterate, this is the comp plan update, and we've already started that zoning ordinance update, but we would need to compare to make them consistent. The ordinance really needs to be influenced by that comp plan, and that's really important to remember. One of our online tools for input was our map that I hope you have visited. This is updated today. We've had over 1,600 visits, 600 unique users, and they're staying over 3 minutes on the site. So they might not be adding comments, but they're definitely reading all those comments. That's pretty high. That's what RDG is telling us compared to some of their other projects in other cities. So and it's diverse comments from bike lanes and turn lanes to different types of grocery stores to all over the place. So check it out.
Let me add on that one. So this is the map, the public input map is also part of the project website where people can go and learn about the comprehensive plan, learn what it is, where we're at in the process, provide comments on the map. But that data can feed all departments. So the information that's provided on that map, it might be about parks, it might be about program opportunities within parks. People don't always just stay on the topics that we give them. So I think the value in part of this process is that we've been able to connect that to our colleagues in other departments like economic development, like recreation.
Yeah, and there was very little parameters given for this input. It was just, we want to know what you feel. We want to hear your word about the future of Bettendorf, and then they could put a pinpoint on that map and they're off the races. So it's still live, and I think we'll have it live through just before adoption. Looking at our future land use map, so back in July, we shared a future land use draft. That future land use map incorporated a population for projection, a population of 57,000 people roughly, so that's 2045. So we took those different densities, single family has different density than of course high commercial and or high intensity apartments. Took those residents per acre, and we had to kind of plan the map. Just a reminder of how this is what 31,000 people looks like in the orange in 2002, 34 in 2015, and 39 in 2020, 2023. So imagine another 17,000 people and how that will look on this map. So it's really the
And you just, if you go from 2002 to 2023, and you look at the, I'm gonna call that tan colored area where development is occurring, that development is pushing north and east. And I think that's a trend you're gonna see as we provide you with a future of the city of Bettendorf, some north and eastward growth. That is where the market is taking us, that's where the people are taking us. Again, we just create the playing field, the developers build this, and home buyers buy it, and business owners occupy it. But that northeast trajectory tends to be repeated in the plan that we're providing for you for your review.
So going back to shown on the screen here is on the left map is our currently adopted map that was adopted in 2017. It's what's in our current comp plan. In July, we brought to you, and RDG brought a draft version of the map, which is the center map. We received a lot of comment. We also shared this with those same civic groups, the developer groups. Took all those comments together, and then RDG gave RDG those comments, and they produced another draft map, which is on the far right. So this is the most recent draft map. This is what all the statistics for the draft of the comp plan are being derived from. You can tell I can kind of give a tour of that in a second using our little interactive app. But in general, we heard to add density along Forest Grove Drive, less density along Criswell areas. Kind of highlighted commercial areas on our Indiana and Middle Road north of 80. Also, there was some comments about our conservation subdivision, I believe north and east. So we kind of reoriented some of those to reflect proper topography. The southern half of the map has remained unchanged really from what you've seen in July.
I would say I would say unchanged from a
Draft.
From the draft, but well improved because we've really done a good job with identifying
True.
Those what's in blue, give me the term.
Civic public
Yeah,
areas.
civic public areas that aren't gonna be up for development, so those don't get counted in your developable area.
Schools, hospitals.
Yeah, so really done a good job with that and trying to get rid of if you remember the Barnstormer ball field error, trying to really get those kind of errors. Now, we're not perfect people here, but trying to get those type of errors out of the system so we don't repeat that mistake. So we've spent a lot of time, when I say we, I mean the guy next to me, spent a lot of time really nitpicking this thing to make sure that, is that what we really mean? Did I click the wrong cell color when I was redoing my map review? So that's why I'm talking about process and product improvement. I think it's gonna be really good. And I told you all before, the future land use map is the holy grail of the comprehensive plan. It is the piece that matters most. It is the piece that really is law. of the future land use map, or of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is, for 99% of it is really philosophy, but the law piece of it is that future land use map. And that does guide our zoning code and does affect our zoning, your rezoning decisions.
And at one point, I wanted to reiterate, that population projection is 57,000 people. So that's based off our past growth from 2000 to 2020, based on like a 1.6% annual growth rate. So really hugging that projection, using that projection for 2045, this map with our prototypical land use densities, this can handle 57,000 people. So you see the brown area to the north, that area is just reserve. We do not expect to need that until after 2045, based on our projected 57,000 people. If we were to get less density, then you'd have to probably spread it out, more density, obviously.
And it's not all, that all doesn't happen at once, right? That's
No.
just, so these things build in.
You saw that from that past map, how long it took. We're still developing south of 80. And there is some development east of Criswell if we were to go that direction, and then there's not a lot of development north of 80, and we'd have to still sewer that. A lot of things have to happen. All right. I kind of went over the changes, but we do have an app I can share with council through email. You can kind of explore the map further. Through the questions, I guess we can take them now, but
Well, I think, let me just prime the pump a little bit, and some things that we heard about, both from our joint session of P and Z Council and Board of Adjustment, and then with our developers, was you gotta start building some density along Interstate 80. If you drive to our neighbors to the west of us along Interstate 80, that's where they're putting their density, and it makes some sense. It's the most busy road we have in town. There's some noise and other externalities associated with it. So kind of build that density up a little bit. We were being pretty careful because we know we're kind of a bedroom community, single family. It's kind of our vibe. So when we first started that draft, we were probably a little too light. So we added the darker colors, the darker reds and the darker tans are showing that. And then we did try to find a piece somewhere to throw a little industrial on this map. Bettendorf was an industrial city. It is an industrial city still. But that tends to be in our downtown riverfront area.
Not really.
And some of that's transitioning. So do we want to find a place to put it? This is our best guess right now. That is where we would suggest that purple, I'm gonna call that a triangle. That's our best guess right now. Our feelings are not hurt if you don't agree with this or you want to change it. That's why we're here. But we're trying to reflect our best thoughts and what you've told us in our previous communications. So Taylor can dive into more minutia if you want.
yeah. Those are some major changes. We tried to balance with growth. We wanted to keep our service levels for parks, so acres per capita, roughly the same. Public parks, that is. So these are parks that are identified, aren't necessarily future parks, but we need to communicate that for future growth to think about parks, facility space, school space, and that's all that map is communicating. It doesn't state that this is going to be zoned for schools only or parks only, but it's a communication tool when we are looking at future developments. Another element of this comp plan is that conservation subdivision. We will further have to codify that in our zoning ordinance update, but it's really preserving and high topography areas and giving performance to maybe some density or some larger lots for single family, so they don't have to, bulldoze a whole mountain per se. What else I got?
Let's talk about the new commercial classification that you added.
Sure.
That's great, and it's a great addition.
Another addition was our limited commercial land use. Right now, we have 3 zoning commercial districts: our community commercial, our neighborhood commercial, community commercial, and our general business. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of match those, have a future land use classification that doesn't have a large things like gas stations or car washes come to mind. And mom and pop stores is something that was used, or maybe a small coffee shop. There aren't a lot on the map, but I think by identifying a current one is some of our smaller lot commercial areas. Central Avenue is one that pops to mind that's developed, but we have some potential areas along Middle Road, in Tanglefoot, out by on Forest Grove. And those are really our two new land use designations.
So that new commercial designation, it is our lightest category to have potentially zoned commercial. And really the thought being that part of good planning is, we're kind of a nodal city. We have our Bettendorf Middle Road, Double Splendid node. We kind of have the node of commerce on Street. And then maybe downtown, we're kind of three nodes. But we don't want to always have every trip have to go to a node. Maybe you can serve your trip within your neighborhood, and that's where I think things like what the sites have done with the PV Bar and Grill and the little bakery and or what else is that? Maybe there's a State Farm agent or something in that strip mall, where those are trips that are really just being served by that neighborhood for the most part. It's reducing a trip elsewhere on the road network, which is kind of good. You're not putting somebody out up and down Devil's Glen Road, but you're also providing services that are wanted and liked by neighborhoods and not the ones they don't want and don't like. So that's what we're trying to do there, give you a way to find that land use and then zone appropriately for it.
Another element to this future land use map is our downtown area. The recently adopted downtown master plan update held off on adopting a future land use for the downtown overlay. This shows a lot of density. This is the trend of development in the area. It's high intensity mixed uses for the most part. Of course, we have a few civic areas and our Leach Park and our band shell area, I guess you'd call it.
And it probably takes what was some formal industrial area
Correct.
off the map, so to speak, and is converting that to more of that high density downtown user.
Yeah, we still have our transitional area just east of where State and Grant combine 26th Street. Mostly the same from a higher level, high intensity mixed uses. Our main industrial corridor remains the same. We do have our Pleasant Harbor and Terrell Edition area that is kind of up in the air. They do not have sewer connections or water connections, so it kind of limits the type of growth.
Also on map accuracy, Taylor spent a lot of time getting those greenways, drainage ways mapped and not shown as some type of future land use they're not gonna be. So if you have a greenway that's draining a large area that's already developed, that's not ground that can be developed, and you don't wanna create this idea that it is or pump up our statistics. So he spent a lot of time working to get those out, their floodplain, their drainages,
Yeah, exactly. They're at least floodway, some floodplain, or even some areas that have been parked or forested for long times, especially in our eastern areas, off of, let's see, just east of Middle Road there. Duck Creek, yeah. So it covers a lot of the changes that we're proposing, that RDG is proposing through your input, through the public input and staff input.
I've just finished the slides and one question.
Yeah, we can take questions after. The fiscal impact study, so Gruen and Gruen, another subcontractor or consultant that hired by RDG, they did a update to a fiscal impact study. They conducted one in 2017, and this is an update to that. It's currently in the draft stage, so I'm just sharing some bits from that study. But what they did is broke down our growth areas north of 80 and east of Criswell into different tiers. Tier 3 is shown as all brown on the map, it's reserved, so they didn't really do any impact for that area. But they broke down Tier 2, Tier 1B, and Tier 1A. It really considered general fund, anything in the general fund, so it excludes any type of infrastructure, roads, sewer, and facilities. It infers property values and densities from existing developments in the city. So it takes a little excerpt of the city that's already developed and says, looks at the current property values, tax revenue. It also forecasts a tax revenue based on a 50% rollback for residential and an 87% rollback for commercial. So it has all these variables in in its assumptions for growth. Taking a look.
Go back to the map just for a second.
Sure.
So, we're not talking about annexation specifically right now, but I think if you're looking at this map, you gotta be thinking, where are we annexing? So, and it is part of that conversation, which is also another chapter in the comp plan. So you see, obviously, some of these are well outside of our borders, like tier 1A. And I would also note that the numbers, kind of correspond to how soon we would get to them. Obviously, we're not gonna go jump up way north, leapfrog, do a bunch of development. That's highly expensive. You gotta run road, water, sewer. It's not well connected. But I think we're looking at projects right now, coming to your docket, if you will, in tier 1 and tier 1A. They're just this far away, so they're on the way. So this blends into the annexation discussion, but this isn't the annexation discussion. But obviously, you wanna know what you're gonna get if you annex. And so this helps you have that information. If we do annex something, what's the impact? What do we get fiscally? What's our cost? What's our take? And this will help you as we go through that part of the plan later on. Sorry.
Problem. So the methodology of the study was look at a single acre of land of growth area, and look at if it's a single family residential versus multifamily residential, commercial, industrial. It has a total revenue, that's shown in the table here. It also has costs associated with it. Some things like culture and recreation, they don't have a cost on commercial land because library users aren't, people living out of town aren't going to the libraries, things of that nature. But police and fire, they have to serve people coming to our commercial areas and our tourists. So some general assumptions based were the costs. And another assumption was keeping the same service level we have now. So if we have so many police officers per 40,000 people and we grow to 57, that's the same methodology they used for parks and recreation. And they talked to Jason on a lot of these numbers, but they really just took our last budget and some general numbers and forecasted those out. So you can see single family, this is a net annual impact, so it's the revenue minus those costs. So you
Per
have
acre.
five
Per acre.
per acre, correct, yep, per acre. I'm on the per acre slide still. So that equals per acre, a single family, that revenue minus cost, 3,200. Multifamily, you're gonna have more people per acre, so more revenue, but also more costs. But it still equals $7,600 per acre. Commercial, 11,000 per acre, and then industrial, 5,200. Now, when you're looking at it, expand that to that map that showed those growth tiers, growth 1A, tier 1A, tier 1B, tier 2. They used our future land use map, which had a different, acreages for residential, commercial, industrial. They expanded that out so you can see the different mix, how the different mix of land uses equal a total, and this is annual, net annual impact for each of those areas. So if we were to build out, that's the 2045, 57,000 people in all those growth areas, it's 6.4 million in growth, net annual impact for revenue on the general fund.
So, here's the big,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Where'd they come up with footnote 1? That single-family housing is assumed to comprise 90% of the future residential land use lots. Based on recent trends, that seems like it might be leaning a little too much towards single-family. Did you guys have that discussion?
They took some conservative assumptions, so we do believe that you're right, that's leaning less towards single family. But basing, the rollback's also a conservative assumption, that land use is also, so this revenue might be some conservative
So
values.
we can go back to them and say, hey, change that variable to 85% or 79% or whatever, you know.
They ought to be able to work with you guys at RDG at what our trends have been and maybe adjust that, but I don't know that it's gonna make, in the grand scheme of things, nothing ever turns out how it's planned anyway.
That's right, yeah.
And our growth areas might have a much higher density than our development trends in other parts of the city, so that's kind of one thing to take in mind. It might have a lot higher commercial than, I mean, as you saw, our future land use map has a lot of red, to the north, so there might not be as much. So those are things to take in mind.
So
But to the point, if it's, Your Honor, if you don't mind,
No, please.
but to the point, if our single family is our least revenue area, and we're at 90%, that would tell us that that's a very conservative estimate.
Yeah.
Very conservative.
Yeah,
And so,
and you're still getting a positive net
yeah,
annual
you still got
impact
very
without
positive numbers.
the CIP
but there's,
considerations.
Yeah.
yes, Your Honor, but there is a big catch, right? And that consideration, you just hit the nail on the head, is we're not talking about the cost of debt service or the cost of entry to serve these areas with infrastructure. So this is just saying, this is your profit and loss statement. You're not getting the cost to build out infrastructure, to create these areas, to make them developable. Now, there's a lot of ways you might do that. You could do it with partnerships, you could do development agreements, you could do TIF, you could get a grant, all kinds of things. So they can't really give you that piece, but there is a cost of entry. You're gonna have to pay for road, water, sewer. That's what cities do. Or you get developers to pay for it, turn it back over to you, or you cost share on that. And they're just ignoring that so that you can see, if you fund that, this is the annuity of payments you will receive forever and ever, amen, once it's embedded in the city in a taxable property. And that's the cool things about cities is, you know, we basically create annuities. You come to us, you get incorporated, you develop, you run the tax rolls forever and ever, amen. We gotta make some costs up front to make, you have road, water, sewer, sidewalks, all that stuff. And then those costs get paid off because you are now on tax rolls. That's how it works. So that's just a really big caveat. When you look at this, it's not like day one, you build a house in tier one and we're getting this benefit to the general fund. The general fund does have that benefit, but there is the cost of entry that really is, we're just ignoring for illustrative purposes. We know it exists.
And this is also just based on general fund,
This is only the general fund impact.
which is where police, fire, library, administration, parks are. It's not where public works or road use,
That's
any
correct.
of those areas are.
Yep, and the study it shows, it's roughly like a 22-page study, and it expands into all those assumptions on costs, fixed costs versus variable costs. For instance, for like a library, you'd have a fixed cost you'd probably have one library for a city our size, even at 57,000, but you might have more staff for that growing. So it plays with those numbers.
Should be an asterisk at the bottom. These numbers are based on current situation. Iowa State Legislature may
Right, and
change
so
that.
there's the other nail that you just hammered, right? Yeah, if they change the rules on us and how we're allowed to make money, this is pointless.
Yeah, and they tried to, they did put in a lower rollback into their assumptions, but you only could do so much.
Yeah.
And the total study will show that. It's in the final editing stages right now, so they'll be shared when it is ready.
Could there be a way that, as maybe some of these new legislative rules and laws come into effect, that we could contact Gruen and have him maybe update this, this chart? Because that's a concern to me, is based on where we're at today.
Any more questions on fiscal study? We will share it with you. It's just a tool to kind of see how that growth that affects the general fund for costs.
I've got a quick question on the, and maybe I missed it, but say there was a little area, and this was Fifth Ward, that was residential and you turn to light commercial, and it's like 3 houses. Who decided that, or how did that?
And specific area or?
Do I want to announce it? It's like Crow Creek and Middle.
Oh, right here, probably?
No, Crow Creek,
Oh,
yeah.
The-
Yeah, see, there's some
it's all
houses there right
basically-
now.
So this is, oops, an
That's
area
what's,
where they just expanded. This is where we want the comment from specific areas, from anyone really.
right, so that other corner,
That is
Correct.
commercial across the street. That's where PV Bar Grill is.
so the corner to the left? Okay,
Yep.
so is that just based on, gee, let's mirror it?
So if that were if that were to develop in the future, it's currently residential. It's zoned residential, I believe, or it might be ag. One of the two.
I think it's ag.
It's
Yeah,
ag.
so it's not saying it's going to be commercial tomorrow, but if it were to redevelop, infill development, that'd be a proper place for some light commercial that's across the street. That's what it's communicating, not that it's commercial
And
tomorrow.
remember, this is just saying, it's not saying how it's zoned, it's saying when it comes up for rezoning, this is the land use we wanna see. And so then you check, okay, what zoning districts can come from this future land use plan? So it's not a zoning decision at all.
Okay, so it doesn't affect them, say they were to list it, sell it residential? Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Not at all.
okay.
Not as a current.
It could affect him positively.
I think it would. You really would think that that would affect them very positively.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not a regulation of their current use.
Okay,
But they will call.
And staff will work with the consultant for, as part of addendum to the plan, we will have basically the map broken down in sectors
Yep.
to kind of explain, the changes that occurred, I guess the amendments that occurred from the last plan to the current plan. Things such as we're adding, blue, which is the civic and institutional, just correctly identifying those uses, because we don't feel they're not going anywhere. The greenways, everything that Mark kind of touched on. That way for future staff, future council members, public can see how it changed.
And remember that they're being taxed always on what their use is, not what the map says.
Getting taxed
Right.
under zoning.
I'm sorry, but if you look at Tanglefoot South, I believe that's still agricultural.
oh,
But
even though it's commercial?
But I believe I think it's agricultural. We're showing it in the map with the pink.
Yeah.
But I think it's an ag, still ag zoning, but the pavilion that's there is being used commercially, it's taxed commercially, but the zoning is ag.
The property's being taxed
Right.
as ag. The building's being taxed as
Commercial,
commercial, yeah.
because that's what the use is.
'Cause you
Go ahead,
remember-
Mark.
You remember the Dan Elias thing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he farmed it all the time and was getting, because it was zoned commercial, it was getting taxed commercially.
Go ahead, Mark.
Your Honor, I think that's a really good clarification, that
That's
these are
what
not
I-
tax maps. These are not, the maps that we're creating here today are not used for tax purposes in any way. We are not the taxing authority. That's done by the county. This information is not used for that. They have their own metrics that they make decisions on how taxes get made or how land use decisions get taxed by their own authority, not by us. So this, again, just to clarify, is not a tax map or a taxing tool of any kind.
Other questions? Jerry?
Question. I suggested that the urban reserve tier 3 map go west in line with I-74. And I know that before he left to be a state senator, Mr. Webster was on that same page. Is there a reason that that comment was not considered?
So we had a lot of comments relative to where the growth areas of the city should be. That was a minority of the comments that were received, and most people did not see that as a vision for the future. Now, if that's something that council wants to direct us to do, we're happy to do it. But I would say that we did not have a crescendo asking for that area to be included.
What was the question again, Jerry?
It's like we talked about yesterday.
Just like I talked about
Where would
yesterday.
and maybe it was Saturday, it all runs together, sorry. But yeah, moving the possible
Okay,
to like the terminus of I-74.
Gotcha.
Again,
Because
right now, we're
as
showing
we
you-
go north along Utica Ridge Road there, you could anticipate some of that being either multifamily or commercial right next to Utica Ridge. And if we include the west side of Utica Ridge going north, that's a lot of commercial, that's a lot of tax base that the city needs. And your own figures show that those uses generate more money, have a better return on investment. And so I think we should plan on that being part of Bettendorf.
And
And
again,
likewise, you pointed out that that's where the potential would be for industrial, if we continue to get industrial. So that's my suggestion, that line in line with I-74, go north.
Did we get consensus on that as part of our planning, or was that just a discussion?
I personally believe it's just a discussion, Your Honor, and I think you know, from a staff perspective, we have not agreed that moving off of Utica Ridge Road is a good planning mechanism, but if the council believes that that's what it wants us to do, as Mark said, then we will do it. We always thought that the border ought to be on a major roadway, so it's major roadways all the way around, so it's easily to decipher where you're at and where the jurisdiction is from a infrastructure perspective. But again,
It's a line on a piece of paper. Put a line on there. In the grand scheme of things, it's all gonna be negotiated anyway.
the issue.
Exactly, and you're gonna end up with more roads in that area anyhow, when it develops. You
So
could have a
practically
road down the
speaking, are you
line.
looking at, what, maybe like 190th? That would
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
theoretically
we talked about.
be enlarged and come down to the, or 200th?
I think also, if I could reset the conversation a little bit, we're talking about planned future land use, not necessarily planned annexation. We are comfortable that obviously the areas that are planned right now would be our near-term annexation. There's an argument that you can make that we could show a lot of future annexation kind of phased out, tiered out, and kind of bring those into an annexation plan or annexation policy. So if the desire is to show a wider area to the north and west, although we see our development going north and east, to show an area to the north and west, you can show that on the annexation policy map in the annexation chapter of the comp plan, and not really affect much with the future land use map here, because we would just show it as reserve.
Correct.
Okay.
So it doesn't.
And that's my suggestion, that we
Yeah,
show it
your
as
suggestion,
urban
we're
reserve.
A little bit agnostic on that, but I think staff would say we see the future of the city to be the north and to the east, but none of us have a crystal ball here.
And the map was not changed, the only part of the annexation map per se that was changed from the last plan is east of Criswell down here. This remains the same shape as the last plan, so.
So I do have another question. When you brought your developers in, did you discuss the urban reserve areas
Yes,
with
yeah,
them? Because, the cost of land is extremely high, and they seem to think that that's what you have on there is appropriate, and they can,
Yeah, so
it will be cost effective to
because it takes
develop that way.
it takes a lot of the dirt work out of the equation for them, because they get to just work around the topography. So maybe they get some setbacks and some densities that are quote less than you would think for a piece of area, but they're leaving all this hillside or creekway or gully. They're not gonna fill it in and flatten it out, which costs so much money. Our large single-family, multi-million-dollar home developer, of course, that's where they're seeing, maybe they could participate in some of that. But we also saw some of our more moderately priced developers going, hey, we could come in and do a pocket subdivision, leave a bunch of really pretty woods and trails and maybe a pond type of thing, and make some money that way too, and save some costs on the dirt work. So we saw attraction from both sides of that developer coin.
Well, I guess my thought was, and I've dealt with the developers for a long time, is they're paying prime price for crap land as well as the developable land. So I just wondered that they thought that this was a good concept. I'm not for or against it, I just wanted to make sure that they
Yeah,
were
we
comfortable.
think so, and it's, and again, we're trying to scratch our heads going, how to your point, this is really expensive land, not necessarily the best quality land from a developer perspective. Can we give them a way to use it that, that kind of matches the vision of Bettendorf, which I think does like some of those larger yards and amenities, but then lets them not have to spend a lot of money on dirt work. This might be a solution.
I like it.
That's good.
Other questions, Greg?
Is this comment time too?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Are you
So-
guys done with the presentation? Is this the last slide?
No, go ahead. Finish up then I'll.
The next slide is next steps, that's it.
Okay.
We're doing it.
Can you go back?
Now he's done.
Can you go back to the map? Yeah, right there. You know, if you'd asked anybody 10 years ago, 15 years ago, about the intersection at 80 and Middle Road, and we want a diamond intersection there, and we want whatever, the answer would have probably been, that's not gonna happen. And 6-lane, Interstate 80, that's not gonna happen. I really think now's the time. I just think it's not good that we have Middle Road as the only way to get up there. So I think it would be prudent to plan that Devil's Glen, north of Forest, up to the interstate, that we keep enough right-of-way that if at some point in the future we can get a bridge, it probably is a long shot, but so were a lot of other things. And then on the north side, figure out if there was gonna be a bridge over 80, what would we need for that bridge? And I think we need, instead of having to try to go back and get the land, just keep whatever we need. But I think we should plan on having another way to get over Interstate 80. I mean, that whole north end's gonna be,
Yeah, from a planner perspective, the point you're making is kind of why we see that northeast growth as our potential, because that's the only place we can get over this lid of Interstate 80. I always call Interstate 80 the lid of Bettendorf. It's not the boundary, it's just the lid. And we've got to go to Criswell, Middle, or Wells Ferry, not even in our city, to get over that lid. If we have a magic wand someday and we can make Devil's Glen Road jump the interstate, that'd be great. I think we should plan for it. Staff would agree with that. It's pretty
that's all I'm
far-fetched right
saying,
now.
let's plan,
But we
for
definitely
what we
agree.
can control now, let's plan for it.
Because getting north over the interstate, unless you use the interstate system, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
And one point I didn't touch on, what this map is showing are these dotted white roads. That's a future transportation network. They're not as exact as, say, what a transportation plan would have or an engineering department. They're just to really communicate connectivity, where connectivity needs to be. Maybe there is a road right here kind of connecting to the right-of-way of Devil's Glen.
That even goes straight.
Yeah, so we could just easily extend that to kind of communicate that it's intention for, there's interest from the community for an overpass there.
You're gonna need it for service.
But it's not to be judged or the map, these roads aren't exactly where they're gonna be in the future. It's to show general connectivity.
Devil's Glen is on the south side.
Yes, but the
we know-
dotted roads,
Dotted lines.
the future
Oh,
roads.
the dotted lines, yeah.
dotted roads.
So just get enough right away that we can go in there and,
Sure.
Other questions, comments?
thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, Nick?
With the interactive map, before it's taken down, can we get a printout of just some of the comments?
Get them all.
You can get them all?
We can get them all emailed, printed, however you want. I mean, that
Okay.
data is our data. It doesn't go away, so
Perfect, okay.
that.
Yeah, I'd be interested in just seeing,
Hey, we can get it right now at the website, right? We can go look
Yeah,
at it?
I mean, you can filter and view it yourself right now, but we can give you, if you would like.
yeah, just a list once it's ready to be, before it's ready to be taken down. That, I'd just be interested to see what
Yeah.
some of the comments are and,
They aren't pinpoints, so they'll have context by their pinpoints.
sure, that's fine.
And some get likes, some don't,
And there's comments to the responses to the
Sure,
comments, so.
yeah, yeah.
So there's some interesting things.
I believe that, I'd be interested, so,
I thought you
thank you.
done. Any other comments, thoughts?
Your Honor, we do just want to
Good
make one
job, guys.
clarification. We will have another chance for you to deliberate on this.
Okay.
That's some input I received from our planning sessions, and so we're gonna make sure that we get in front of you again, perhaps in a format like this. We're thinking November 13th. And kind of looking for nods on that one. So that would not be a normally scheduled meeting, it would be a special meeting just to talk about comp plan stuff. One more time, go through the whole kit and caboodle before we have our community open house on November 20th. So that's something we would like to get at least tacit approval on. And that date is just, we're throwing something out there, see if it sticks, let us know.
Well, we can, without commenting too much on November 13th, I think the concept is good. We'd like to sit down and go through it with you.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, anything else?
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, thank you,
Lot of
gentlemen.
work.
Appreciate it. Good job, Taylor. I know you've been the point person, so thank you very much for your hard work. Any operational items that any council member would like to discuss or ask questions about at this time? All right, we'll leave the operational items on tomorrow night's agenda. Let's move to consent. Any consent item, any particular item, any particular council member would like to discuss at this time? It's kind of a short list on consent.
Buying any tractors.
All right, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion that the consent agenda items be considered as such tomorrow night.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll take up the consent agenda items. Any items added today, other than we are going to go into an executive session? Anybody? Obviously, a long weekend of strategic planning. You all look exactly the same as you did when we left here at 5 o'clock yesterday, and at 5 o'clock on Saturday, and at 10 o'clock, or maybe it was 9 o'clock on Friday.
Left at 9, Your Honor.
Lots of good times together. All right, we didn't have anything to be added. Let's entertain a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Iowa Code Section 20.17 sub 3 for the purpose of discussing union negotiation strategy.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so
Ad-
do you have it, Michelle?
Adamson first, and who's the second?
That's fine.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not gonna be making any.
Call a roll for me.
Okay. Adamson,
you voting to go into-
Adamson.
Brown,
Oh, aye.
Connors.
No, it doesn't matter. Take me on it.
No, you got to vote to go into executive session.
Are you going in or not?
That's what we're doing. Okay, I thought you were still
Jeez.
arguing about,
No, I was confused.
yes.
My lord.
Nauman.
Aye.
Sexer.
Aye.
Baden.
Aye.
Palczynski.
All right, we're gonna enter executive session.
We're going to keep some staff here, Your
The
Honor.
staff that